Hey, pals. Welcome back to another episode of Pullboxpals. And you've guessed it, I'm back. Matt is back, and he's here with his pal, Mr. Monk over here, who's trying to keep his drinking.
Oh, yeah, because I thought it'd be cool to when it cut in from the theme song for me to be drinking some water out of a quarter of a gallon.
Yeah.
And you hit my chuckle bone. So I'm very happy that I just didn't have a spit reaction. I mean, it would have been great for the views and the clips. I would have pulled that instantly. I would have put that on the internet. Oh well.
It's a good day when your chuckle bone is hit.
but how was your trip, man?
Oh, it was good, man. I love going down to Texas. I got to hang out with our pal Eric. Went to a little dive bar with him, and then we went to the comic shop that he goes to, which just blew my mind since mine is not I mean, my shop's great for what they can do, but they just don't have the audience. And Austin Books and Comics is where Eric took me to, and I was just like, I could spend the entire week here just going through. But yeah, it was fun. I ended up getting issues 2, 3, and 4 of The Seasons Have Teeth while I was there.
Oh, there you go.
So I'll be reading those pretty soon. And then what did he pick? He picked up something as well. Well, if Eric's listening, he can
throw that down in the comments. In the meantime, here's the picture of you guys out in front of Austin Books.
Oh yeah,
Comics.
There we are, hanging out,
looking dapper. Yeah, I mean that's pretty exciting there on the inside.
That big old Hulk statue is just so cool. And then that's the bar that we went to. Nice. The parlor.
Awesome. Yeah, that looks like a right fun time.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it was hot, but it was also kind of dry, which you in the past when I've gone down there to Texas, it's a little bit more humid, but they're kind of experiencing a little bit of a drought. And,
oh no, that's never good.
Like the 2 rivers that I go float down there were 3 feet lower than they normally were when I've been there in the past.
That's not good because you're 3 feet taller than you have been in the past.
I know I did. I grew 3 feet in Texas.
Hey, it's bigger down there, so that would totally make sense. And just want to say hey to our buddy John.
Hey,
long
John.
Time no see. Good to have you back with us. Man, it has been a hot minute, and I have just been so looking forward to chatting comics with you. We usually do fun banter and stuff. I mean, I guess we kind of talked about your trip to Texas, but I just want to kind of just dive right in.
That's fine.
I'm trying to think. Do you got any other fun banter? I do have a fun antidote.
I do actually. I think you're gonna like this, but this kind of ties to Texas. So when I go down to Texas, I'll check out their craft beer scene a little bit. And Texas's beer scene has very much evolved over the last 5 years, and so it's gotten a lot better, and there's a lot more variety. But I typically just stick to drinking the national beer of Texas called Lone Star.
Oh, there you go.
And
that sounds like that would be the name of it because it's the Lone Star state.
Yeah. And so I really enjoy throwing back Lone Stars while I'm there, but you can't really find them in Oregon.
Okay.
I'm sure maybe somewhere at some beer store that's not in my neck of the woods of Oregon, they might have it. But I do know of another place's beer that I really like as well, where that exists in my town. And so today I'm going to be enjoying the some Taiwan beer.
Oh, wow. Look at that. I thought you were going to say Yingling because I live by, I don't know if you've ever heard of
it. Yeah. That's like all the buzz over there in the Northeast, isn't it? Like a lot of this, I always look at the most drank beer per state each year. Like that comes up in some beer magazine, and so many states in the Northeast, it's all Yingling. And I'm like,
it's great
I know
stuff.
of it. Never had it.
Yeah, I live about a block and a half away from the brewery. So it is very much embedded in the culture here. Let's just say that. But Taiwan beer, I've only had that a handful of times, and maybe they've definitely been in Taiwan. And I would love to get. Actually, I think I've had them once in the States too. I remember the first time drank it, it was so skunky. That's all I ever remembered of it. It's a very skunky beer.
Malt, hops, and panlai rice.
Yep, there you go. Wow, that's exciting. That's fun. Well, if I had I'm drinking local tap water out of a local tea gallon thing. So
that I wouldn't expect anything less of you.
Yeah, me neither, my friend. My my fun anecdote was that I made it to the King of Prussia Mall. Have you ever heard of the King of Prussia Mall?
No.
So technically, it's the largest mall in America if you get rid of the Mall of America's like indoor like amusement park stuff. If you got rid of that would be that would be the biggest one. So we went down there to see Oppenheimer and the last voyage of the Dirt. I always say that last word wrong, but it's Dracula on a boat, and it was
I know what you're talking about.
They were both fantastic films. Anyways,
I still haven't seen Oppenheimer, but I did go see the Turtles.
Oh yeah, was that good?
I loved it. It's like Kyle said this on Comic Book Lair the other day, but he's like, we've lived through at this point like 4 recreations of the Turtles cinematically, and this one they just chose to go a different way with like the origin story a little bit. Like they took some liberty there, but I can see it all coming back around in the sequel to like everybody who got uptight about it, because that's a complaint I've heard is like, oh, the origin story just wasn't like what it was supposed to be. And to me it's like, who cares? For one, like they made a great movie, and then 2, like if you see the end credits scene that gives way to the sequel, it made me feel like, oh, like they can still tie so much stuff into the story that they just told. Like this was just like a teaser movie of like how good this could be, and I think the second one's going to be great. So and I think it'll help people also feel like they can fit better in that like seat and enjoy the movie. So
nice.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna make it out to see it, but the whole reason I brought up going to that mall is because they too had a comic book shop there that I could have spent like hours in. My friends were gracious and let me swing by, and that's where I found Jonathan Hedrick's oh goodness,
Caffeinated Hearts.
Caffeinated Hearts. Yeah. I don't have that on me at the moment. I should have had that for the podcast. But I got a signed copy of that. So I'm actually, you know why I don't have it? It's because it's up on my wall. I forgot that I put it up there. That's
where it should be.
Yeah.
Man, because I bought a Caffeinated Hearts from him when I saw him at Fan Expo in Portland. But I didn't have him sign that one because a coffee shop in my town said that they wanted a copy to. They have a customer drawer. So if you're sitting in these 2 chairs and there's like a little table in between them and it has a drawer, and they like to put stuff in there for customers to like look at and read. And so he wanted to put one of those in there. So I did not get that one signed, but I did have him sign all the Dream Masters I had.
Nice. I mean, Caffeinated Hearts is still probably my favorite thing that he's done. So to get it signed, and I didn't have a copy of it beforehand. So to get a nice signed copy of it was, I'm honestly thinking about sending it off to get graded, along with another comic that we're going to be talking about later. But do you want me to tell you what I got at the comic shop this week?
Did you say you made it to your shop today? Is that what you're telling me?
I sure did. My dog got spayed. I don't know if you remember, a couple weeks ago, one of them got spayed, and now the other one got spayed. But in the midst of all running around dogs and all that stuff, I was able to make it and crinkle this bag a bunch. I'm real sorry about that.
I enjoy the crinkle.
So this was in my pool box, and I haven't been reading it, but I'm just going to keep rolling with it because I feel like this will be something that I sit down with one day and just kind of hammer out, or at least I hope this is kind of how it plays out, because I really loved how the story started, but just got deterred very quickly into it. But it's Monomyth, I believe number 4. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I like this cover. Looks like some magic stuff starting to happen. But
wait, so have you been keeping up on it?
No, it's that it's I can't remember if when we talked about this, if I named this specific comic, but this was definitely one of those comics where I'm just like, I don't understand what's happening. Yeah. I need to just like go from the beginning and just kind of plow through it, you know? So that's kind of my plans with that. I hope I mean, there's only 2 more left, so I'll probably just ride it out, like I said, because I really do. I think I enjoyed the first one so much, but it was so convoluted that the second one was impenetrable without kind of having that fresh in your head.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've talked about that.
I read the first one. I got the digital copy on Omnibus, and I read through it, and I was just like, I don't know. I really like the art, and like it wasn't that the writing was bad, but you did, like you said, it was kind of like all over the place and kind of convoluted. And so I don't know. Maybe when the trade comes out for it, I might pick that up digitally. But I already have so many other things going.
I would honestly say just wait till it hits Comixology, or wait until I read it. Let's just say that.
Let's do that. That's a plan.
That'll
put it
be
in our calendar.
Yeah. Well, don't do that. Don't put me on a deadline because I was over the past couple of weeks, I was able to kind of put a dent in my to read pile, which was really nice because it was good because it was so much of just like finishing stuff off. And I kind of talked about that last week with Andy. But yeah, it was good to be able to put a dent and then just honestly just kind of push aside a lot of the stuff that I'm like, yeah, I'm never really going to get to this, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, one that I'm going to get to, hopefully, because I bought it, but I also bought all those other ones. Anyways, it is Cole, the Cole.
I don't have cover.
Yeah,
I got that as well.
Oh, great. So I don't have any idea what this is about, but the art is super intriguing to me. I don't know if you've cracked it. Oh, that's terrifying to just have that up. I was looking in the comic and you had a spooky cover. It was like I looked up and it was The Exorcist looking back at me. But the art is just like super, super like surreal. And not surreal. That's not like hyper real, you know, like very impressive.
I haven't flipped through it yet, but
yeah, I mean, that's why I picked it up because I was like, oh, this is, I mean, I would have loved it, honestly, for the art to look like kind of how this cover looks. Yeah. Because I'm a huge fan of this. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the back here and it's rated teen plus sci-fi fantasy. So I'll take it. Why not? I'm a teen plus. I like sci-fi fantasy.
You're like a teen plus at this point.
Yeah, I'm like a 2 teens.
I mean, so am I, but
yeah, I mean, you're more of a you've got more teenagers inside of you. I don't know how to say you're older than me,
but I guess like as teenagers start at 13 since it ends in teen.
Yeah.
So when you're 39, that's when you're officially like three
teenagers. Yeah.
Jeez.
You're almost 3 teenagers, buddy.
I'm getting there, man.
I'm like a teenage. I'm not even 2 full teenagers yet. Yeah. Anyways, I picked up this one just because I'm always looking.
I thought about that.
Did you crack this one open?
No.
Well, we'll get there, but I'm always on the fence about getting Godzilla stuff. Like it's such an interesting world to me, and I like if it looks good, I want to dive in on it. And so I picked up Godzilla War for Humanity. I didn't say that. Sorry about that. But like the art inside is very reminiscent. I think this has to be the same person who was doing some covers for Do a Power Bomb, because it's so reminiscent of a lot of the stuff that was on that. And
it looks old school.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love about it, is just it's very like, it looks like it's out of like a manga, but like hyper colorized. Like,
yeah,
like it meets like like a manga meets the 90s kind of thing. So
with like inspiration from Jack Kirby colors.
Yeah, very bold, solid colors. So very excited about that. But I think the comic that I am most excited for, which is the last comic that I have here, is the Hollywood Special. This is
you got a rad cover.
Yeah. Definitely I'm not a fan of your cover as much as I like. This is like the best out of all the covers. Okay. This was my only option too. So let me tell you why, man. I'm sure you might already know, but for the people at home, if you crack open this book, and I was looking through this earlier, and was only made aware of this because our good pal Andy reached out to us. But if you look on this page here, I might show up backwards. It says, "Well, hello, Minersville." And then in the background, there's a right here by my finger. It says there's a sign that says Minersville. I drive past this station every day.
That's cool.
This sign is actually there, which is insane. So it's a story that takes place within the Good Deeds universe, which I'm happy about.
In your neck of the woods.
But in my neck of the woods. So like it's literally a place. Like I said, I drive past it every day to work. Like I'm gonna be driving there tomorrow. You know. Yeah. And so I'm super excited about that. Like I also, and I hate to say this, but I dropped off of Good Deeds. Or I'm sorry, this is not in the Good Deeds, the Dark Spaces storyline, the Scott Snyder thing, whatever that he's doing, kind of just having all those stories together. Yeah. But yeah, I dropped off of Good Deeds just because it wasn't drawing me in. Nothing, like something really big happened, and then like there was 2 issues where like nothing happened, and it just kind of like repeated a lot. And
it sounds like just speaking of kind of like intense, spooky thriller horror things, kind of makes me think of Bone Orchard Mythos, where it's like the Free Comic Book Day one was just fantastic, and then the first 2 things they released were just like they were good, but I don't really know.
Well, so Scout's doing this thing, and I don't think that we've talked about it, but I actually do have one here. I'm glad that I have this. I forgot that this was in my pile. So this was I picked this up as well. It's called Comic Book Kills, and it's from Scout Comics, and it's a nonstop. Have we ever talked about the nonstops from Scout?
No.
Okay, so from what I understand, the nonstops is they release the first issue, and then they just release the trade paperback of it. So it's so that's kind of the nonstop premise, is that if you like it, you can just kind of go all nonstop in it. And I really like that, of just like throwing that out there. I think that that's like, again, hats off to Scout for like doing something cool and innovative, because I think, and again, like even just the business method is just like, well, if they like the first one, like just I would imagine like somebody did the math on the drop-off ratio and like how much it would be to buy a trade. Like, and I don't imagine that it's gonna be super expensive if it was kind of made with that in mind, you know? So yeah,
essentially that's how I buy Marvel stuff these days.
That's honestly, it seems like the best way to buy comics. The art inside looks really cool. I have no idea what it's about. It kind of just looks old-timey, like whatever, vintage. There's a newspaper boy, you know. But then there's also, I just turned a page and there's a man called the Skyway Man, and he's riding like a hoverboard coming through a portal. So who knows what this comic's about, but I'm definitely in on it. I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to report back, or my name isn't Monk. So yeah, kind of is, right?
It is.
Yeah. What's in a name? But were you able to make it to your shop today?
I sure did. And once again, I was like a little shocked because, you know, I dropped off a bunch of Star Wars titles. And so I think my shop had assumed all of them. But now I'm kind of thinking that they forgot that I wanted to keep Vader, because Vader has started showing up in my box. And so that's what I'm starting with. I got the latest Darth Vader.
That's a dope cover, besides the size of Liam Neeson's forehead.
Yeah.
They went a little big on that one.
A little large there. But yeah, so like I'm missing, I think I got up to 31, and then so this is 37. So I think I missed 32, 33, 34, and 35. I don't have the physicals for, but they're going to be, by the time I get to actually reading these, they'll probably be on Marvel Unlimited. So,
right. Yeah. But again, it's just nice to have them.
Yeah. I got another Marvel here. I picked this one up just because I don't know, like I like getting number ones of characters I like, and I like Moon Knight. So we got this What If.
I was gonna get that. I had it in my hands. I was like, maybe, you know, the stack was kind of short, and it's a What If, so I would assume it's kind of a one-off.
Yeah, but it has I can't remember what they named her, but it's the first appearance of her.
Oh, then I definitely Cypher,
Cypher,
something like that. For we all know what we're trying to say, but I definitely should have grabbed that now that knowing that she's in it, just for collector's sake.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if this one will tell me. Hang on, I got this. I'm all
I
over
can
this.
also look it up, and you can continue to talk about your pulls.
Then I got a rarity here for me. I got something from DC. It's number 0. Penguin Takes Flight.
Oh, I like that cover. Is that guy in the who's the guy? That guy looks familiar.
I know who he is, but I don't remember his name. But yeah, this is 0. This is Zdarsky that's writing this, so pretty excited about it. And then it's that Moon Knight thing. It's the first appearance of Luminary.
Yeah,
a female version of Moon Knight.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so I'm glad I picked that up. And then this one was actually in my box last week. I don't know when it came out, but my shop recommended it to me because I had read the initial series, but it's Berserker #1, Poetry of Madness.
Okay, saw this as well.
So yeah, I honestly didn't even know that was coming out, and I'm glad that my shop reached out and was like, hey, do you want this? And I said, yes. And last but not least, this series that I've really been enjoying, I believe Kyle's been enjoying it as well, but it's In Hell We Fight, number 3. And I love that cover. Yeah.
Every time I see those up on the shelf, I'm like, oh, Mad's definitely having fun with them because the covers always look really cool. And I just remember the premise just being really interesting and just kind of fun.
It's just fun because it still has like a zany cartooniness to it. Not in that like you see it, animated out, but just in the dialogue and just the way that it's drawn. Because like, I don't know, like I also have really been enjoying I Hate Fairyland. And that's also similar where it's just like it's high intensity but still like quirky.
Okay.
So it's just been a fun read among all the other horror stuff that I have been reading.
Right. So. Yeah, I kind of do feel like my baseline for reading comics, the genre that I read is horror, So like I feel like I don't know if that's indicative of anything or just like the fact that like we've talked about before is just comics are a great medium for horror,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if it's just again like my shop having just the selection that it has, or that just being like so hot in comics right now, which I kind of feel like it's that. I think people love a good like if it's not like like some of the comics that will actually. Do you have any more pulls?
No, that was it. That was the last one.
So I'll swing it into this. Some of the comics that we'll talk about are kind of a blending of horror plus other elements, specifically Western, and for other ones, Western and sci-fi. So I think there's a lot of people, a lot of comics have that. If it's not like the main theme, it's kind of like a backbone or it's a vertebrae.
There's something about it that pulls from horror tropes or just classic characters or classic take on a character. But yeah, because I was like thinking about it today, just because, and I had messaged you before saying like I think I read 4 bangers this week, and all of them were either one of those 3 categories or a blend of, but horror, sci-fi, and Western. Or just that. I mean, as well.
Like what? Those are the best genres, Like for me personally, like I'm not a big like spy guy, Like, I mean, maybe noir.
I like a good like detective noir, but if it's like espionage, it's different. But I do really enjoy Old Boy, and Old Boy is more like espionage.
Yeah, I think
Old Dog, not Old Boy.
Yeah, Old Good Boy. Yeah. So the comics that we're going to be talking about together are the Enfield Gang Massacre and Space Outlaws. I mean, just 2 comics that just did such a good job of just portraying the genre that it was trying to portray, and the other one doing a like superb blending of genres. So
But so Enfield Gang Massacre, like I was first taken back by the book itself, not like necessarily the story or the art yet. Like when I opened it and I smelled it, like, you know, we joked about this with our pals over at Comic Book Claire, but it was just like, just to hold this thing and smell it just puts you in that era of what the story is. And I, you know, when I made my post about it, I wasn't sure, and both creators responded on it, and said like, one of them like confirmed like, yeah, like that it was an intentional choice to like do the paper in newsprint,
right?
And it was just a wonderful choice because it just added that much more to just really like sinking into it. And the opening line, I can't quote it off the top of my head, but it just like floored me, where I was just like, this is gonna be good. I need to take a seat here and like pay attention. And I just thoroughly enjoyed that entire story.
Oh yeah, same. I unfortunately haven't been able to get my hands on a physical copy yet. My comic shop had it, didn't have it, nor did that one that I went to this past weekend, which I thought was a little insane. But they didn't have much from Image, which I thought was interesting. But anyways, I digress. I ended up having to read this digitally, which was a lot of fun. But pretty much, I think when my comic book guy hands me that comic, I'm gonna just tell him to bag and board it right away and just put a piece of tape on the back. And then just find myself another copy, because I love the creator of Chris Conlon and Jacob Phillips. I did that off the top of my head. I hope that
Condon.
They just do such a good job working together. And I just look at that.
That's like this cover just says so much about it. And I love the contrast of the lettering for the title, just with like kind of how much duller the like actual picture is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if that was like the cover of like a I can see that on an old novel, you know, somewhere like on a shelf somewhere in some gun club, you know? And I think I love it, you know, and so I do want to get a physical copy that I can page through, because I am looking forward to that experience.
You should just tell your guy to get you two, have him board and bag and tape one, and then just once he hands you the one that's not board and bag, just open it up and smell it.
I had that realization after I had him order me one, so I didn't want to be like, get me another one. But again, I'm sure I can do that. I'm sure he doesn't mind.
You can order as many copies as you want, man.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be upset about me giving him money. But anyways, do you want to tell us what the story was?
Yeah, actually, I don't know why I put it back, because I have it written down here. So this is what was written on the Key Collector Comics site for it. But the Enfield gang of outlaws find themselves in the crosshairs of an aging Texas Ranger and a newborn county that's hungry for the law. And so what we have here is the main character's Enfield. I can't remember his first name off the top of my head.
I'll see if I can pull it up.
But essentially, he continuously has been robbing the town bank like every month.
And like on a schedule.
Like on schedule. And but the banker's like, look, like, we don't have to do it like this. Like, I could give you like a real job and you can like be the bank's bodyguard, or, you know, like you can be the protector of this place, and I'll actually pay you, because like the law is coming into town. Like we are now like incorporated into the United States. And so things are going to change. You're not going to be able to keep doing this every month. And he then he kind of like he still robs the bank and leaves, and he says like, well, I already have a job here, because I come here once a month and take all the money.
Right. Yeah.
But he like goes back to like a bar or saloon or whatever, and is talking with a buddy and just saying like, you know, it's probably not a bad idea to like straighten out and like start settling down and like take a real job. And while this is happening, the banker is murdered. And it becomes a mystery around that. And so the obvious pointer is Enfield, because he had just robbed the bank.
Right.
and the marshal has now come to town and is going to start looking for the Enfield gang.
Right. And I will say that this seems like it's going to be a instant of like, whoopsies, I didn't mean to kill you, like kill this gang. Because I will say, when the Texas Ranger shows up to the saloon looking for Enfield, he just takes out 2 dudes. And like, it's one of those, like, in the early seasons of Arrow, how he would just like shoot the mob like bosses, like henchmen, but wouldn't shoot the mob boss. Just like, well, why didn't you just kill those like random people who didn't murder, potentially murder? It's just one of those things that take you out of it when you allow it to. But I mean, it is just a Western, it is just like I don't know. It's just how those stories are told. So it's not wrong,
Yeah. Well, and I had recently watched a movie. I may have mentioned it before, but I recently watched a new Western that seemed to be an old Western starring Nick Cage, and it was called The Old Way.
Okay, yeah.
And it has it's similar.
Oh, you mentioned that on here already, I believe so. Yeah.
But it's just similar in the sense that like Nick Cage, like, and they do the flashbacks, it's like pre-law in the towns that he goes to. And he's a hired gun essentially. And then when he's old and is now seeking vengeance on this group of guys that came and destroyed his life, he meets up with like an old like ranger or like a U.S. Marshal, and the marshal's like, it's just not the same anymore. Like, you can't just go around and do what you want. Like, the law is here now. And Nick Cage's character is like, well, watch me.
Yeah.
But it was a really fun movie. But yeah, if you like Westerns, and if you're a fan of the mainline run of That Texas Blood, like this is like a must read.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had said it too in my post, but like just artistically, like all around, this is probably my favorite piece of work I've seen come out this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean on like the creative aspect of it. I'm not saying it's like my number one of the year. I'm just saying like this whole piece of work that I have in my hands, like everything that went into it, like just was all balanced and in the same like world. And I just loved it. So
yeah, I want to pull up this one page from it, because this was probably my favorite panel here. This just showing his face, Enfield's face. I thought he was smoking something for a little bit, and I realized it was a scar going up.
Yeah.
But I think they did such a brilliant job of just being like, this is this character. You can see the ruggedness on his face. Like, I thought it was a brilliant introduction to that character. Yeah, so I mean, I'm super excited about this. Another thing that I wanted to say is how this comic ends. I don't want to spoil it, but the last page and the last image that you see, I was like, oh, there's That Texas Blood. Because like up to this point, it was pretty much just a Western story, which was it was a phenomenal Western story. But then the hat kind of drops, and then you're like, oh my goodness, like this is in that same kind of like crazy. And they do a similar thing with That Texas Blood issue #1. So it was kind of like a cool callback to that, of just like everything kind of seems pretty normal, and then something happens that you're like, oh wait, this is kind of above a Texas Ranger just becoming sheriff's pay grade, which I imagine was literally probably a nickel, like, it
was 5 nickels.
5 nickels, which is, I'm not going to sit here and do the math. I'm no paleontologist, but anyways, that was a great comic. Super looking
paleontology, like plants.
Yeah, I was kind of.
You mean archaeology?
Sure, whatever. I'm also no botanist. Well, that's also plants. I guess I am. What's a guy who studies words? I don't know. Anyways, let's get into a comic.
A linguist?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to talking with you.
Etymologist, sorry.
Oh, there you go. Wow. I've been looking forward to talking with you about this comic since I read it.
Yeah, man, same here, because like when you posted about it, I was like, oh, I have to get that. I had already asked my shop to get it for me. I like forgot about it. And so when I came back from Texas and it was like sitting in that pile, I was just like, yes.
I gotta dive right into it. But of course, we are talking about Space Outlaws. Look at this cover, man. I am such a fan of just this art, how it
It's so
looks,
good.
just like everything about it. I am gonna go ahead and declare that this is indeed my
banger of the week.
That always happens.
There it is.
But hey, I didn't read it this week. It's part of a series. I think it's just 3 issues. But man, nice. I could read this forever. Like it was just such a captivating read.
Oh, absolutely. Like the writing was captivating, the art was captivating, like just the use of blacks, grays, and whites with like pink tones. Like it's on the cover. I wasn't expecting it like going into it that like every panel would be like that, but like the way that they were able to orchestrate it like was just fantastic. And the story just gave me so many vibes of like old classic sci-fi movies and spaghetti westerns. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's such a perfect blend of those genres. Like just this alone of like, oh, this is a great splash page.
Yeah,
got a
I think that might be my favorite page in that.
So
that book.
Since you set up the premise for the Enfield gang, I'll send Massacre. I'll set up this one. There's a prison on Mars somewhere, and there's this alien who the comic picks up, and there's this alien outlaw who's escaping. And what I was really happy to see was that it wasn't like human beings like in spacesuits trying to track him down, but it was another grosser aliens trying to stop him.
They are like very grotesque looking, like not like Jabba the Hutt grotesque, but like because I mean they're a bit like cleaned up, but they just have like what looked like a lot of parts to them, and they look kind of like in a way like there you go.
They just like look like bugs, just like, bugs in like suits. You know? And so I mean they were just super unsettling. And then I don't know if we have a name for the space outlaw, but this is I would imagine he's kind of our main character. He's an amalgamation of our main character. He ends up being able to.
Is that him? Because isn't he isn't the actual thing that escaped like an organism?
I believe it was he. Yeah, it was him, the organism who escaped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought that it was like a body that the organism had taken over to escape.
No, so he crashes on Earth and then he takes it over to escape. Okay. So he crashes on Earth, and you can see it here. He's heading towards Earth, and then he comes across this farmer who had lost his wife and kids left him, and he bought this land that was just barren and wasn't providing anything. So he was going to take one step and a quick short stop, and this alien just comes up and possesses him, and so I would imagine them were just off to space outlaw adventures, as the title implies.
Yeah, well, and just like the what did they call him? Essentially the character that the alien bug looking insect thingies they call upon this like certain being that is essentially a Terminator.
Yep.
And like
pull that up.
Yeah, like shared like, certain stylization as Terminator, but still was its own thing. And when it shows up and just asks for clothes,
that's when I thought that was really cool, because it was interesting, because it was like, well, it's not just like a death machine, like it's not just killing these things, like it's kind of practical, it's thinking. So I don't know, it was I absolutely love that comic. I don't know if it is just 3 issues or if if that's all they just have at the moment, but I'm 100% going to be reading this. This is by the entire thing is by Marco Fontanelli. I'm sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly, but he also did King Jira which another comic that I absolutely loved. So I'm just gonna be I'm gonna be following him. Whatever he's putting out, I'm gonna be buying. So yeah, keep putting stuff out as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Hang on here.
You find anything?
I'm trying to see, does it work for me?
I don't know.
Oh, I guess it doesn't. I tried to share the screen that has it, but it does look like, I don't know, like League of Comic Geeks only has 2 issues up at the moment.
Okay. So I guess we'll find out in time.
But yeah, no, I'm digging it. I'm looking at these variant covers for issue 1, and by golly, they're wonderful.
They are wonderful.
Well, hey man, what else did you read this week?
Well, so I read
over the last 3 weeks.
A lot. But I mean, thankfully I've had this podcast where I could talk about them. So if you want to hear about some of the things I read, you can go back and listen. But these are some of the things that I did read over the past couple of weeks that I didn't get to talk to either with Andy, or we had something else going on or something else. But I just want to talk about this because this has kind of been like an ongoing saga for us here. But The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Battle for the Pumpkin King, that wrapped up last week. This came out.
Oh, right.
And I read it over the weekend. And man, I just got to say, this comic has just been like satisfying, like through and through, like from page 1 to page alpha or page omega. It's just been like just the like fun, wholesome time. I will say that my initial, I won't say criticisms, but hesitation to be like, well, this is, how are you going to justify this in the end? Doesn't really pay off, you know? But I think through reading this, I don't know why, but I feel like when I read the first issue, I was like, this seems like a little bit more adult directed than what it initially was, or actually is rather. So as I was reading, I'm like, oh, this is just like a kid's story. It doesn't really need to make sense. You know, it's just like a fun thing. They just have these competitions to see like who's going to become the next Pumpkin King. And we all know who's going to become the next Pumpkin King. So it's just kind of fun to see like just again, like wholesome, just little banter that they have back and forth, and Oogie Boogie's being mean to Jack, and Jack is always just like, why are you being mean? Why is the guy in this horrible nightmare town being a mean person? But yeah, it's just, I feel like they did a fantastic job, like with all the characterizations of like all the people that have, you know, come from the movie. And yeah, it was just a really good time, to the degree that I'm gonna probably have it on my top 10 comics of the years, unless like something drastic, you know, happens in the next couple months here. And I'm gonna like genuinely miss it, you know, like it's one of those comics that I just got super stoked whenever I saw it. I mean, it was on my pool list, so like, you know, whenever I got handed that by my comic shop guy, I was stoked about it. So it does suck that like it is over, but you know, all good things come to an end.
This is true.
So, just like this review.
Oh man. Well, I think I already said it, but yeah, I had like 4 bangers of the week.
Oh boy.
And we've talked about 2 of them. So Enfield Gang Massacre was a banger of the week for me, but so was Space Outlaws. But what's coming next is my actual, if you want to do the little thingy,
banger of the week.
There it is. I read this last night, and it just like, I don't know, like I've never turned to like the last like page or 2 and just been like, what the But the Ribbon Queen did that to me.
Oh, man.
So you know, we were talking earlier about just how like good comics for I guess you and I right now are ones that are taking on horror and blending it into some other genre, or even if it's sci-fi or Western and those are being blended. Like, it's just like those stories are just so good. But this is one that I also mentioned. This is like essentially a detective noir story with a supernatural horror twist to it. And this gal on the front cover, I need to go back through and read it, but like she shows up at the end, and like all it is her walking by the main character. And but what the detective Lee, no, not Lee, I can't remember her name, what she stumbles upon after crossing paths with this lady is like the most grotesque thing you could ever see happen to any person.
Oh boy.
So just to point out here on the cover, but those ribbons, if you look really close at them,
I bet their skin, they look like they have tattoos on them.
Yeah, exactly.
No good.
Yeah. But like this is apparently the Ribbon Queen and what she does. And but like the story, the story around it though is that like the detective is investigating a murder that just happened of this gal who 2 or 3 years prior to the story was the most recent victim of a serial killer, and the cops showed up right before the serial killer got her or killed her. And so she had been away, like this takes place in New York City. She had been away from the city for like years. She came back, and then 2 months later, she was found dead on the street in front of her apartment. Her apartment window was open, but she also had a stab wound through the chest plate.
That's not good.
And so this murder investigation gets open because they resolved that she couldn't have stabbed herself because it went through the breastplate. Like that takes a lot of force, and like to try and do that to yourself as a way of suicide would just be torture.
It doesn't seem great.
And also there's another thing this comic did to me. I think I've talked before about like I don't do well with like real like stabbings and whatnot in movies. I may have told this story before, but when I watched Parasite, the Korean film that won Best Film like a few years ago, when the daughter gets stabbed, have you seen it? Okay, well, when the daughter gets stabbed, essentially that led to a course of events in which I wound up passing out while using the toilet. So,
oh no,
because I got so disturbed by it. But I've never seen it talked about so well in just dialogue to where like I was getting the same like, oh no, I might pass out reading this. Like, but I got through it.
There you go.
But no, like Ribbon Queen just absolutely shocked me. It's a series of 8 issues. It's out by AWA. I love AWA.
Yeah, I
don't get enough AWA, but like when I do, I like always enjoy it. And so this one's done by Garth Ennis, and the art's done by Jason Burrows. But yeah, that was my banger of the week, and if you haven't read it, I recommend reading it. If you need a good AWA, or if you just want to branch out into AWA for the first time, like that might be a fun one to start with.
Yeah, AWA is definitely your we kind of share Scout, but AWA I feel like is definitely your publisher. I want to say your neck of the woods. Like I feel like
they're I believe they're in Milwaukee, Oregon.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. They're actually literally in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So that explains that. But my dear pal, Mad, were you able to get into Swan Songs number 2?
I have not. It is in the front of my to read pile.
Well, good, and it should stay there until you read it. Now, we're gonna cut this short, and you're gonna go read it. The art is absolutely phenomenal. My gosh. Like just the utilization of, background colors to emphasize different times of day. Just, it's beautiful. It's so well done. And W. Maxwell Prince does a phenomenal job telling the story as always. Also, there's just wicked moments where it jumps to stuff like this. Yeah. So you're looking at a samurai scene, and And it's so the story is as we talked about with Swan Song when we reviewed issue. Look at your face. You're so taken aback by this.
I am.
Dude, you're gonna love this. You're gonna love this comic. So let me get into it a little bit. I won't spoil anything for you.
Okay.
Not that there's really anything to spoil. This is kind of just you're just watching something unfold and you're hearing the backstory of how it came to be. But it's Swan Songs is about endings. And so this issue is about a couple, how they met, and they're getting divorced. And in the divorce hearing or filing, whatever it is, procedure, it's decreed that they will be in eternal conflict. And so that's what you're seeing in that Samurai page was just an instance where the two of them were fighting. And so it's interesting because they even take on the personalities of the the genre or whatever it is that they're fighting within. So while they're samurais, they talk about honor and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool.
But then you also just get the story. There's not too many. There's only like 3 or 4 instances where you see these them fighting in a different
That's
thing.
A great detail, though.
Oh, it's so cool. But like for a variety of reasons, I have a friend who's unfortunately going through a divorce. I'm planning my wedding at the moment, and so this story, like, this was the closest I've ever come to crying to a comic. I don't think any other comic has really ever like brought out like that emotion in me, but this just I'm a huge fan of W. Maxwell Prince, so like this comic just like brought it out in me and just like he's so good at bringing out emotions and just like tapping into like the realness of people. It's very like Jeff Lemire of just being able to tap in and just articulate human rawness in such a way, So if you're not on this series, like I just imagine that every one of these, it's like if Space Outlaws wasn't my banger of the week
on it.
This would also be a banger of the week. But so those are the kind of big ones that I wanted to talk about. But what else do you got for us, buddy?
Well, this was another runner-up for the banger of the week, but also comes from AWA. This one's called The Madness.
I really like this cover.
Yeah, this cover's rad. It's got some radness to the madness.
Wow.
So this is written by J. Michael Straczynski. I think I said that right, or Straczynski, something like that. The art's just done by ACO. Not familiar. But the concept behind this is very, very promising. Essentially, what you have, this gal here, she's essentially like a Robin Hood, but she's more doing it for like her family. So really she is just a thief, but she also is like but she's also a super powered being. I think I wrote some notes here. So after the murder of her family by a group of super powered assassins, a woman driven mad by grief taps into a split aspect of her persona that is capable of brutal vengeance. And so she's kind of like, I don't know, a regular super powered person. Like she has a power. I don't quite understand what it is yet.
Sure.
Other than like she can have she can fly, but if she flies, like her super strength dwindles. So like she can't use them all like simultaneously, but she has like some sort of ability that gives her a lot of abilities, but she can't like use them in tandem.
Right.
And but yeah, so like this whole first issue is pretty much, said there in that little summary. Just her family is murdered, and she was just about to retire from her game that she's been playing. And so issue 1 just sets up this story that I think could be told in probably 5 issues, but they're doing 6. Or sorry, 4 issues, but they're doing 6. So it also means like I don't know. I'm always a little iffy when like there's a series that is outside of the normal of like the 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm. I mean, 6 is a little normal, but I also feel that way of just being like 6 is a lot, and I do honestly feel that way about the Enfield Gang Massacre of just being like 6 is a lot of issues, you know.
6 is a lot of issues, but with the way that this issue 1 went, it didn't make me as like worried about like whatever that is for me about a 6-issue series that I like get nervous about. Like, because it just means there's a lot of opportunity for it to like dip, and
Yeah.
we don't like dips. I don't like dips. Like sometimes dips are necessary, but like they got to be used correctly. And but anyways, so yeah, issue 1 was just like so good though in setting up the premise of like what the summary was, that I feel like the next 5 issues are just also going to be bangers.
So nice. Good. I'm glad I've gotten in a lot of good reading, you know, over this past couple of weeks. It sounds like you did too. You know, the fact that you're coming back with, 4 bangers,
bit,
you know.
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean that's all stuff that I picked up last week when I finally got back from my trip. But
right.
Yeah, while I was on my trip though, like I had a goal of reading as many issues chronologically as they came out, or just by published date of issues involving Kraven the Hunter.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You messaged me about this.
Yeah, and so I have a goal of getting like to like the mid 90s of those, and I think I'm still in the 60s.
Okay.
Like decade wise, like
right.
Ones that came out in the 60s is where I'm still at, but there's really not that many. I'm sure there's more than what's on Marvel Unlimited, but there really wasn't that many.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I would kind of imagine that he probably just popped in and out a lot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, just for anticipation of that movie coming out. But other than that, I didn't get into a whole lot of comics in Texas. I mostly read Stephen King books.
Oh, nice. So there you go. Well, hey, just some spotlights that I want to shout out. Actually, I think I might have talked about a couple of these last week, but I'll say them to you. But this one I didn't mention last week because it did come out last week. But Banshees #3 continues to be phenomenal. This was my Scout Comics Sunday, I believe. And yeah, it's just a really fun story. And this one's definitely going to be up on that. Like, it's going to be a competitor for that top 10 list. I've been trying to start just getting that ready, you know, because I don't want to forget.
I'm kind of like breaking it down in like categories in my head.
Well, I'm thinking, should we do like best one shot? Maybe like do like top 3 one shots or something. We'll talk. This is an off-air conversation, but let us know in the comments if that's something you want us to do.
Yeah, if there's something, if there's like a genre or style or whatever that you want us to pick our favorite of the year for, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to do. Maybe instead of the top 10, we'll do favorites of something, or we can do top 10. We'll talk about it off mic. Well, maybe we'll throw up a poll. Who knows? I do want to say that I finally got around to reading The Hunger and the Dusk, which was came highly recommended from our buddy Ray. And I just absolutely adore this cover. I think it feels good. It looks good. And I really enjoyed the story. I didn't enjoy it as much as Ray did. Ray seemed to this like reawoken comic books for him. But it's a really fun story. I don't typically go towards like this kind of fantasy, like Lord of the Rings kind of orky fantasy, but this world just had like something about it that was definitely very alluring, and I 100% agree with him that like even if you're not into comics, how did you make it this far into this podcast? But this would be one to recommend to a friend, you know, just being like, listen, you want to start getting an ongoing series, this is easy to jump in on, you know how a story works, just follow these characters, you know. And then also Grit and Gears continues to be a lot of fun. I can't remember if I talked about this last week either, but yeah,
you've mentioned it before, at least the series. But
I know I read it 2 weeks ago, so I wasn't sure if it was if I mentioned it last week with Andy or not. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much everything that I've gotten into, plus mixed in with last week's stuff that I talked about.
Right on. Well, yeah, the only other 2 things I read, actually, I read 3 other things this week. I'll start with my favorite of the 3. I read Tenement 2. Again, like issue 1 was so good, and it has so much of the Gideon Falls vibes to it, but it's still its own entity. Like it's making the Bone Orchard mythos what I hoped and expected it to be. And issue 2 is just very much carried that forward after issue 1 as a good follow-up. Nice. Finally got around to reading Dust, which Ross recommended. Right. Did you read that as well?
Yep. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's another banger from Scout. Well,
and then,
not a banger of the week, but definitely up there. It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one from Scout.
And lastly, I read Sacrificers.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get this.
I got this because it had a little preview of like the first 3 pages in the back of something else that I read from Image, and I really liked it. It was the intro pages. I really, really enjoyed it. And it's Rick Remender who did Righteous Thirst for Vengeance.
Okay, there you go.
But it's a different artist, and I don't know, like I might read it again, but something just wasn't doing it for me, and so I'm not sure if I'm going to stay with it. But I did enjoy it, and I have it, so we'll see.
Nice. Yeah. Well, hey, I it's definitely been like a good couple of weeks for me of just like getting really good stories and just being really happy with like because I think it's very easy for comic book people to like, I feel like get overwhelmed when their pile gets piled up and they haven't really been reading like too much of like great stuff lately. So like it was just really nice to just kind of be like, oh yeah, this is why I love comics, because they're fantastic, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I would say this last week with pretty much everything I read, like it was just a reminder of like, this is why I love comics. Like these are just excellent stories told in a well crafted format, and it does also just leave room for your own imagination to help tell that story. And that's, for me, like that's what makes a great comic is if it can send it over into your imagination where you can like play it all out, visually in your head. That creative team did an excellent job.
Yeah, it's very similar to like a good movie where it's like you don't realize that you're participating with a medium. You're just engaged in the story,
Yeah. Yep.
So, but buddy, are you ready to throw on your spurs and get your 6-shooter and go rob a bank and then get accused of murdering the bank teller, even though you were contemplating taking his job offer?
Yes, I am. I'm ready to get on my horse and head out of town.
There we go. Where can people find us, and how should they interact with us?
Well, mostly you can interact with us on Instagram. That's where we're most active. You can find us collectively at the pullboxpals. We both monitor that account. But you can find me at Matt_nerdy, and you can find Monk at that Monk guy. You can also find us, on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch if you want to watch us live stream or just watch the playback of it. And if you want to listen to it, really anywhere you listen to your podcast, it should be available. I use Spotify. Other people use Apple. It's fine. It's there. I believe it's also
Podcast Nation.
Yeah, and it's there. It's on Podcast Nation.
It is.
And what else am I thinking? We're also we do like the little reels and shorts and TikToks, so you can find us there. And
like and subscribe,
and it's pretty much stuff. all at Pullbox Pals.
Yep, we got really lucky with that.
We sure did. We came up with a good name. Nobody had it.
Well, and now we're just stuck to calling each other pals all the time, which is I'm totally fine with. But thank you to everybody who hung out for the night. It's so nice to be back with you, Mark. I appreciate Kyle, Ray, and Andy just coming through and helping us out while you were off in the Lone Star State drinking their friendly beers. But truly, I feel like I can say this and mean it for the first time in a while, but I haven't read comics like these in years.
Neither.
Bump, 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 bump.